Let's start with East and West rapprochement, we can call it, I think. Middle East stock markets in turmoil yesterday because of the lifting of the sanctions on Iran. The Independent has this story, and it says the price of oil could fall to its lowest level in decades if the Iranians unleash a new wave onto what's already a flooded market.
Iran already sells oil to China, but there could be further economic cooperation between the two countries after Chinese President Xi Jinping visits the region this week. The South China Morning Post is looking at that trip.
The Guardian's financial pages have a report from Oxfam which says the world's richest 62 people now control as much wealth as the poorest 50% on our planet. The World Economic Forum in Davos takes place this week.
Optimism in the financial services industry fell in the last few months of last year. According to the Independent's business pages, it has a poll by the Confederation of British Industry.
Gulf News reporting on a UN proposal that football games should be taxed to help raise $40 billion a year for humanitarian relief. It says Islamic financiers could also be asked to donate.
And sugary food and drinks are going to cost more in hospitals across the UK. The NHS has decided to introduce its own sugar tax to try and tackle the issue of obesity. That is in The Guardian.
Cornelia Meyer is here this morning, CEO of the business consultancy MRL Corporation. You know who she is.
Nice to see you,
morning,
Cornelia.
Good morning.
People in Iran don't seem to be too overjoyed, shall we say. Obviously, the politicians are, but the people are saying, look, we've lived under these sanctions for so long. We're not going to just go nuts at the moment because our lives may not change as much as many are saying they will.
I don't think. I think what happened is in April and in summer, you know, when really the negotiations came through, then they were overjoyed, they were jubilant.
They were in the streets.
So no,
they
were in the streets,
right?
They were happy. So now it's just, you know, now they've just, the government has walked the talk, and now what they were jubilant about has happened. So now they're hunkering down and starting to get on with business.
But how soon will business get on, as
well,
it were?
I think when we look at oil, first of all, and that's also was, you know, the traders were worried. We saw how low the oil price went. They have 4 million barrels in floating storage. So they will, over the next 8 months, probably release 500,000 barrels a month. Then after that, in order, they want to up their production by 1 million barrels. That's about 20 to 30% of the production. That will not happen overnight because the sector is woefully underinvested. But they're doing all their best, and you will see oil companies, oilfield service companies, pump providers, and so on go in there. But you will also see people in the banking sector. Very interesting, Mr. Rouhani's speech yesterday, his big speech. He spoke a lot about the financial sector. He didn't really touch on the oil sector.
But before we move on from oil, I mean, the Independent's article says this is an all-out oil war between Middle Eastern rivals. Do you see it that way?
No, I see it as everybody's pumping as they can, as much as they can, because they want to preserve market share. But it's not just the OPEC countries. Russia is in there as well. We have shale production, so everybody is producing. So it's not, obviously OPEC will now have to accommodate increased production from Iran. They will also have to accommodate Indonesia has just come back in. They will have to accommodate that, and you saw in the last December meeting where I was, they didn't, for the first time ever, put a production ceiling in place just because of the uncertainty of how quickly it would ramp up and shake through the system.
This is a great line. The United States has just released $400 million that they had frozen in 1979 when the Islamic Revolution happened. It was a hedge fund, I think, that they had frozen. And they've also repaid the Iranians $1.3 billion in interest on that $400 million. Amazing. Could this have happened without President Rouhani, and how much will he now be wooing President Xi Jinping when the Chinese president arrives?
They will be wooing each other. It probably couldn't have happened without him, because he and his foreign minister were just very good interlocutors. And then you had Kerry as well. I think you also needed somebody who is as level-headed and calm as Kerry on the American side. John Kerry, the American. So I think that helped. And then you had the EU, so that helped. There was a lot of goodwill. Xi Jinping, that will be very important, but the Chinese are doing it very cleverly. They make sure they get on with Iran. They also make sure they keep on getting along with KSA, with the kingdom, with Saudi Arabia. You see that after Tehran, he's going to go to Riyadh. So they're playing it cleverly. But look, during the sanctions, China was one of the few countries that Iran could export to, and China is very interested in that part of the world and in getting, especially also gas from that part of the world too. It's not just about oil. Let's not forget, Iran has second largest gas reserves in the world.
We shall talk some more about this, I know, as the days and weeks progress. But let's now look at the World Economic Forum. You are going to Davos later this week. And as ever, various NGOs come out with stark evidence to show about the growing inequality gap. Oxfam 12 months ago came out with this evidence, and it said in 12 months' time it'll be worse, and today's report shows it is worse. It
is worse, and you have to give the World Economic Forum actually some credence for this, because about two general meetings ago, about 2 years ago, the big theme was the disparity of income gap, of wealth gap. And this is really a big thing for a big problem for the world. It cannot be that 62 people own as much as 50% of the poorest.
I think, look there, it says wealth of top 1% equal to the other 99%. It's on the screen right now.
It's something.
You can read it again and again and again.
It's something, but it's not just about people. It's also about countries. I mean, some countries are so rich, and then other countries have nothing. So there needs to be some transfer of.
There does need to be some transfer, and I think with these reports that come out, you kind of think, yeah, it's shocking, it's terrible, but actually, how do you fix it? How do you change it? And one of the elements in the report from Oxfam this time looks at the fact that some of those very wealthy individuals who have lots of assets in tax havens, therefore are not paying taxes. Some of them are, quite a few of them are based in Africa, for example. Yeah. And if they were to pay their taxes in the countries in which they operate, those countries would be doing a lot better.
I think
is that kind of practical example of how this could be easily fixed?
That is a practical example, and then there's also, I mean, you look at some of the super wealthy, like Bill and Melinda Gates. They started a foundation and they're doing something. What I would like to see is more cooperation between these foundations and the states. You know, you have a lot of these private do-gooding foundations, but there needs to be more cooperation amongst them, between them, with places like the multilateral development agencies, like the World Bank, and with countries. So there's a lot to be said for cooperating.
Go on, Sally, you take this one.
All right, let's talk about another story in The Independent. Optimism is starting to slip again. A CBI poll finds, interestingly, the poll was taken at the end of last year. A lot's happened since the end of last year. We're in the third trading week of 2016, and it's been nothing but bloodletting, it would seem.
I think we've way in excess of $3 trillion have been wiped off value of global stock markets, 10% in the US and in Asia alone. So this is big. So fasten your seatbelts, and especially as the UK fiscal year ends in April, happily the downdraft is actually on the current financial year.
Ban Ki-moon is in the United Arab Emirates to launch the UN's aid report. He wants more money from Gulf countries, from generally rich Islamic states, and he says let's tax football as well, because we need more money to help people around the world.
Well, I think that's a very good idea. And when you see, and he's been running in open doors in Dubai, yeah. When you look at sort of what quite a few of these Gulf countries do in terms of giving financial aid, yes, they're doing a lot, and they will be doing more. And taxing football is a very good thing. Think of these huddled masses that we've seen last year going across Europe, because they had, Syria, they had no place to stay in Syria. They had Iraq, Afghanistan. Somebody needs to help them, and surely you can afford 10% on your football ticket to help them.
Talking of new taxes, the Guardian front page is dedicated to a new sugar tax to be introduced across the NHS, in hospitals, etc. So basically, if you're in a waiting room and you're going to get a bottle of a sugary drink, it will cost you a lot more A good idea?
I think it's a very good idea because essentially the NHS walks the talk. They say, and they're right, they say we're consuming part of our obesity crisis in this country and in other countries is not just fat, it's also that we consume way too much sugar. So yes, let's walk the talk, and if you feel that you need to drink a very sugary drink, yes, let's charge for more.
I'm assuming the money they make from this will be ploughed back into the NHS.
No, I'm just reading this, right? It says it will use the 20 to 40 million pounds a year from the new tax that it's expected to raise to improve the health of its own 1.3 million strong workforce. So I'm going to be helping to improve the health of my nurse, which actually...
Now, you want to do that. You want to do that. When you look at how understaffed hospitals are, you want these poorly overworked people to be well. But the one thing I want to say is the cover here, it's like pop art. It's the most beautiful cover I've seen in a long time. This Guardian, this is the NHS cover.
You want to write an article for the Guardian, right? You're just sweetening the deal with the Guardian's editor. Cornelia, thank you very much indeed. Lovely to see you. Have a lovely week. Bye-bye.
Bye-bye.